Okay, so I will be recording. So we'll start in about 3 more minutes. So why don't we try a good news exercise? Does anybody have any good news they want to share?
It's funny, we had a meeting yesterday with our local association, and that's how she opened up about the good news as well.
There's
Anyway,
good
the
news.
president. But I have good news. My son proposed, that which I share, my son proposed to his significant other, and they are expecting another baby due in June. So I will have 7 grandchildren. So
Wow.
with that, so yeah, I'm a newly grandmother within 3 years.
Mm.
Wow.
7.
Phew.
Bless the Lord. Anybody else?
Very nice.
Anybody have anything, anything else to share?
Not on that end. Just as the last week of class. Semester's coming to an end.
I'm a newly grandma also. My grandson will be 6 months next week. My first one.
Mm.
And I'm so happy.
Aw. Well, I'll let y'all know what I did last night. I drove 3 dogs to 3 different places. So we saved 3 dogs. We saved this little, I don't know if you could see it. Can you see it? The Mastiff. The
Oh,
rescue was closing in
big
Como.
dog.
So we
gorgeous.
took her from Como, Mississippi to Pensacola this morning. Then I had my foster Moose. And Moose is a bait dog. Let's see if you can see him. A bait dog. So he's on his way
Oh,
to
yeah.
Connecticut. Let's see if you can see him.
Oh.
There it is.
Nice.
He's on his way to Connecticut. And then we got 2 puppies on a transport. And then we got another dog this morning to a foster. This dog. Why is it blanking out? I'm not sure. I guess because I have the background, it doesn't like that I'm trying to put stuff in, extra pictures.
What kind of
Says
dog is
no.
that? Is that a border?
Something about the background is making it. There it goes. That little black and white dog.
What kind is that? Looks like a border collie mix or something.
It is a border collie mix. Yeah. There's some, if you ever all are looking for dogs, Alabama, Mississippi, got lots of dogs. All sorts of fancy dogs. If you're ever looking for the fanciest of fanciest, the Miami-Dade shelter. There's dogs I never even heard of.
Mm.
Out here in Idaho, they can't keep them in the shelters because they're just flying out the door. Even
Wish we had that problem. We
out
got
on-
cats galore. We got cats on campus. We got cats everywhere and dogs everywhere.
Hmm.
All right, well, let's get started. Miss Tammy's going to start us off first. Miss
Good
Tammy?
afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for attending the First Friday Higher Education Council webinar sessions. As you know, we've been hosting this the past 5 months, and we have 1 more to go. And so I just welcome you all in attendance for today. Today, our First Friday webinar session will be presented by Miss Jennifer Lewis, and we are all familiar with Miss Jennifer because she's been presenting with us the past 5 months of our presentations, 4 of them at least. And so we're very thankful for her. And Jennifer is also the coordinator of the Higher Education Council Professional Development. And she's going to give us a presentation today on empowering Excel. We will learn how to use and create pivot tables in Excel and a few more features. And so I'm going to we'll block out for a minute as Jennifer give us our presentation. I'll come back to close out. And so I'll introduce to you some and present to others. And we'll welcome Miss Jennifer Lewis. Thank you, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm sorry about the dog noises. Somebody's making some kind of noise over there. I think my grandma's in the kitchen. So today we are actually, I'm a replacement presenter. So I wanted to share with you, our original presenter is not with us today. His name is Rex Baumhold. Rex was a statistical analyst here at the University of Southern Mississippi. And on Tuesday, he passed away unexpectedly. So I just wanted to take a moment and ask for you all to have some kind thoughts and some prayers for Rex's family as they deal with the sudden loss of Rex. Rex was only about 55 years old, so he was a pretty young man and gone quickly, but he was the original presenter and this was his love. I think he would enjoy my joke when I say Rex was the original pivotor, because he was always pivoting with everything he did before the pivot word became cool. With the pandemic, he was always pivoting because that is the essential component of his job, is using these pivot tables. So we'll just take 1 minute to just think some good thoughts in support of Rex's family after his unexpected loss. Okay. All right, let's get started with our pivot presentation. So let me share my screen. Make sure you're seeing this one. Okay, let me know if you see an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Are y'all seeing the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hold on 1 second.
Yes.
So this is, let me move it over a little bit so you can see what the label is. So you see on the bottom here, the label says source data. This is our original data. So ideally, when you're using a pivot table, you're going to have your source data. This could just be a massive output of thousands of cells and information from your, we call it our PeopleSoft, our ERP system, where we have data on the students as well as some data on the employees. And so, for instance, we've got this insurance information data that I picked, so it wasn't anything personal to anyone. It's just some random data on insurance information. So with your source data, the first thing you have to do before you can create a pivot table is actually make this into a table. So I'm going to actually copy this over and show you in case someone doesn't know how to do it, because there's actually a little shortcut that I like to use. So I'm going to copy this and paste this into a new space. And paste it. Oops, I'm going to do it without the table. Hold on. Paste it unformatted. Formatted its own. Actually, I'm going to do it a different way. Okay. So here in our data, I'm actually going to see if I can get this to undo. Because I've got a little, hold on, let me expand it out. I cannot see all my columns. Oops. So what I want to do is undo this so that you can see table design. There it is. So under table design, you'll see there's convert to range, and it asks you if you want to convert it to a normal range. So now it is no longer a table. So if you were to click on insert pivot table, it's going to try to make it a table, but it's not a table right now. That's one way to make it a table. The other way is obviously like we did a little while ago, where we highlighted all of it and then clicked insert table. You see that little insert table or Control T. But I actually like to do this. I click the Alt key, the N key for new, and the T key, and it comes up a little box and it highlights everything that it thinks is going to be in your table. And so if you have a very long set of data, the Alt N T is probably the easiest way to get all that data without having to scroll. Because sometimes, I don't know if you've had this problem, but when you start scrolling, you'll lose the scroll and then you have to start over again. And I've spent many a time doing that, but using that Alt N plus the T key, and that'll be in the PowerPoint I'll send out over the weekend, you'll be able to get this table running pretty quickly. So once we have our table, the first thing we're going to do is summarize with pivot table. And it'll ask you, here's the pivot, but see right here, it's doing a little bit weird thing. Hold on. I actually like to go in here and do insert pivot table. The reason I like to do that is because then I also see the insert recommended pivot table. So I want to go over the insert recommended pivot table because honestly, all of us have a lot to do in very little time. So the most important thing I want to do is give you some keys to make your life easier. So they're thinking about this logically with computer logic, what you might want to put into a pivot table. And so they're recommending certain things. So if you click this right there, once you're in the table, it gives you different options. Count by policy, count by region, sum of insured value. And it's got a lot of different recommended tables. And you could simply click on one of those. It may be the table that you want. So if it is not the table that you want, you could just simply go insert pivot table, then leave it. I always do new worksheet. I find it confusing to be going into like the double letters of double A, double B, all those and going sideways. It's not for me. I like to be on a new worksheet. So I always say new worksheet. I hit OK. Now here is your pivot table. So you need to add information into your pivot table. How exactly do you do that? There's a couple ways. You can click on buttons. You see it's trying to put it where it thinks it belongs. And see, it will fix itself. It automatically tries to put it in there where it thinks it belongs, but you may not want it to be there, but we'll discuss that later. And then you can always unclick everything. You can also drag where you want it to be. Like if you wanted the policy numbers this way, you could drag them there. Again, you can unclick, or you could also drag over here. Oops, that one didn't work. The next thing we want to talk about after we're dragging different things is things that make sense. So right there, you see that doesn't make sense. So we've got the state and we've got a policy number. So that's really not going to help us. But what if they were asking you for how many policies from each state? This can easily do that by moving the state into the counts, except for you don't need that. So then you just put the states and you put the count per states, and really quickly, now you know how many policies came out of each state. Same thing with regions. You can click on region, then you drag region to the count. It automatically tries to count. That is not the only option. Remember, anytime there's a field right there, you can click on that and change the settings. So if you go to value settings, it gives you some other options. Are y'all able to see these options I'm pulling up? Where it says sum, count. Do y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so you can change it to sum, you can change it to count, average. There's several different settings, standard deviation, count the numbers, products, variance. That's some statistical information if you needed it. And it's also got some different things right here. Percentage of grand total, percentage of column. So depending on what you're doing, this could be very, very helpful. You could also do insured value, but you see right there, it's going to the sum. If you just wanted to list the insured values, you would drag them into rows. I'm gonna move that person. Now, right here, you see that is very confusing because you cannot tell what that is. Like I have to sit there and count. So it's very important that you have formatting on these pivot tables. So I always just highlight. I'm just going to highlight to the bottom of this. Now on the home tab, there's actually a section right here called accounting or general, and you can put $signs. It automatically put the comma in, but if you're looking for percentages, if you were looking to increase the decimals or decrease the decimals, you can do that as well. So that is definitely something you can do. It makes it much easier to read, as you can see. Now, I'm going to pull up the table we've already made. So right here, we've got Midwest and East. You're only seeing those. Why? Because you can filter out to see just what you want to see. So if we clear the filters, you see all this different information. You can filter based on right here, directly in here, row labels. So you can just see the Central, just see Midwest. If you had blank as an option, you could just see blank. So if I just wanted to see East, I would click on that really quickly. If I wanted to see all of them, I would click select all. Now, right up here, there's another filter. And it basically is letting you choose which of the values you want to see. So if you want just the things with 100,000, you click there and it automatically updates that. Now you can clear a filter by going back into the filter. Usually lets me clear it. The easier way to clear the filter, honestly, is just to go to clear in the pivot table analyze and clear filters. Simply put, that is the easiest way to clear a filter. Speaking of, when we go to pivot table analyze, there are a lot of different functions in here, including my favorite thing of all. This is when I first saw this, I was amazed by this. It may not be amazing anymore because it's been a couple of years, but it sort of still is a little amazing to me. This thing called slicers. So you see right here, I'm going to click on slicer. It allows you to basically filter and create these little separate boxes based on each category. And then you can click and then filter it really, really quickly. So let's say we're going to create one for state, one for business type, one for location. Going to create 3 different boxes, and I always drag them apart. Now, I don't know if y'all have heard of something called the dashboard, where people put their analytics on one tab in Excel, and then they just click on different things and it updates it. These slicers are what power what is a dashboard. So maybe in the future, we'll actually do a dashboard class and go about how to create a dashboard. That's a little bit more time consuming than what the time we have today is. But simply put, you could go in here and say, rural. We have row labels. We have regions. Okay, so we're going to make a slicer for regions. Hold on. Let me add another slicer in here. Slicer. Oops. Now here's a point. Okay, you can't just go insert slicer. You actually have to be in the table. So once you're in the table, you can go to slicer and add regions. So since this table is about regions, right? I don't know if you saw that. Okay. When you're on a slicer, you click whatever you want to see. So I want to see the East region. So I just click on that. See how quickly it changed that? Or I could control and click East and Midwest, and it'll show both of those. Oops. And then you just clear it right there on that corner. So basically what this lets you do is quickly see the results of a specific category. So when we're talking about these regions, we could see just Central or see just Northeast. So you could see how this could power like the back end of something to quickly get some analytical information up. I am also going to show you what I like to do, which is, if I can get it to go, I like to move these things. And I like to cut them, that's just me, and put them on the original source data and just paste it. Then on here, it allows me to filter stuff out. Oops. Sometimes it's wanted to not. It actually has to be on the original pivot. Okay. We're going to pivot on location. Let's make another slicer, and I'm going to show you how it goes on this one. So this one's based on rural and urban. So if we were going to do a slicer on that, we would click on our table. We would go to insert. We would click on slicer. We would go to, what did that go to? Region, there it is, rural. Location. Region. I don't remember if it's location or region. It's location. So we'll get rid of this one. So if you click rural, you just see rural. If you click urban, you just see urban. Now I want to also point out something here. On these, you see there's a little minus sign to the left of the category. You can also collapse it into itself. So then you just see the grand total, the sum. So then only when you wanted to see the specific things would you uncollapse it. You can also do that. Collapse it. Right there on the pivot table analyze, there's collapse and expand field. Speaking of the pivot table analyze, I did want to talk about this move pivot table. You saw how before I copied and pasted one of these. You can also move the pivot table to a different location using this function, to a new worksheet or to another worksheet somewhere else in a different location. But that's an easy way to do this. You also have pivot table options. So if we click on options under pivot table analyze, you'll see here that you can show NA if you had some empty cells. We don't actually have any in here, but you could. You could also take away the grand totals or take away some different options here. So here's where all your display options show. This one is very important. Printing on this tab shows printing repeat row labels on each printed page. So I know when you're printing out things, sometimes the labels don't show up on the next page. And so that gets very, very confusing. So please make sure that's checked to make your life easier. There's also some enable show details. And if you're trying to do things for accessibility, if you have an image or something, you could type that information there. Now, we go back to here. There's also a function called design. So right now it's very, very plain, right? It doesn't really have a lot of formatting or anything other than you can change it by just going over the different styles. And it has more options if you just keep going down. So it can make it pretty nice looking. And it can really stand out a lot. Now, right now it does have row headers, but you could undo that if you didn't want those, like it won't be bold. You could add these banded rows, and you can't really even tell in this version. You have to be in a different color where you see one row is lighter and one row is darker. It's difficult to see what the point of that is. I think it's more of a style thing. If you have a preference, banded columns, same thing. You can't see it at all in this color. It only is viewable in certain colors. So that is also something that you want to look at. Hold on one second. So let's go back here. And I don't have any timelines. But we could. Okay. All right. Within the tables, the pivot tables themselves, you can also alphabetize. So you can sort by A to Z. You can sort by Z to A. There's also more sort options. So you can manually sort, which means you have to drag them. This is a little difficult because if you're sorting by that, you have to get those little things that come up when you just hit it right. And I am not, there it is. You can just drag this down. Like say if you want it at the bottom, almost the bottom, but you have to be very careful when you drag it around. You have to get those little, and it's hard to get. I'm not that great at this part of it because I have to sit there and, there you go. So click in the field and then drag it. And then you can drag it all the way back up if you wanted. So again, you can manually sort these. Okay, you can also filter by the labels. So if you want something to not equal to, or, so we have some numbers here. So let's see, 50,000, this is a lot of millions. Let's see, so if we said label filters, no value filters, greater than And let's put in greater than 50. You see, we lost a lot of those. So you can filter like that. So you only see what you want to see based on that information. You can also obviously clear the filters there, or again, go back here and clear. One of the things I want to warn you about though, is if you change the name of something right here, urban. I guess, hold on, let me go back to our source data. Let's go right here and change this to location pending. And then let's make a pivot table, insert pivot table. We'll just get a new pivot table for location. Oops, I don't know if I got this spot. So it doesn't say location pending. Do you notice that? It did not update that. So when you make changes to your source data, it does not automatically update. So I know a lot of us are fans of Google, you know, where Google automatically saves and automatically updates everything very, very quickly. This is not the case with this. You actually have to go in here into Pivot Table Analyze and go to refresh all. And then go ahead and go back. It actually cleared it. Hold on. So let's go back to location. You see right there, it updated the field. It says location pending. Do you see that on the side in our fields? But it did not make that change, even though I made the source data, until we actually went in and hit refresh all. So now when we do it, it'll say count of location pending. So you can easily rename everything, but unless you do the refresh, then you're not going to actually see it on your actual pivot table. So remember that it does not automatically update your source data onto your pivot tables. It will only show in your source data with a new name. So that is important to know. I've never really changed this, but you could use this change data. And if you had a bunch of different tables, you could figure out what other table you want to use and then create more pivot tables off of that. Something's making noise. All right, hold on one second. Let's go back to our regional insured. Let's clear this out. Oh, look right there. Okay. So here, if you have a category and you're not really sure, like this one, it was supposed to be regions, but I put the state pivot table in here. Well, certain states belong to certain regions. So you saw when I was clicking these around, now it doesn't do anything because it doesn't belong to this region, but this central region is what it's filtered on. So when I click on those, that automatically updates that. Because remember, I was filtering on the region. We have to clear the regions to see them all. Or actually, we go back in here to Pivot Table Analyze and clear all filters again. And there goes the regions again. So basically, this is just a way to kind of filter very quickly. And so see this one, you could do all you want. It won't really, it's sort of doing it, but you don't really understand why. So Midwest education, but you can't tell, like it doesn't really make sense without the information. So be careful as to what you're putting in there because it gets confusing. So make sure it matches up with what it is. So this is region. So I should have had the filter for insert slicer regions. And then once again, it makes sense. So Ms. Tammy wanted me to stop at a certain point here and get some questions from y'all as to what you're seeing and maybe some uses you think of this or different things that you might see that maybe need some clarification. So does anyone have any questions about how to use it or have any ideas of how you might use it at work? Patrice? Nope.
Oh, no, I didn't have any question.
How would you use it with like the data that you have to work with?
Basically, most of that would probably be sorting out a lot of information regarding financial aid as far as the hours,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not students have certain type of financial aid. Since I'm the loan coordinator, I can use this as far as, the amount of the loans or how many students have accepted their loans versus who has completed a master promissory note and things of that nature. So, association with the student loan program.
You ever have, when you're outputting your data from your system, do you ever have blanks?
Sometimes.
Like, yeah, so it can also filter blanks. So you can see where you're missing information. So when you would see like these categories right here, you'd see a little box, check box right here to say blanks. And you
Yeah.
could uncheck all these and just click on blanks. I see this a lot with our student IDs or student emails. If a student doesn't give us an email,
Right.
we'll see a blank. And so I'll find all the blanks, which messes me up because if not, when I just highlight all of them and send an email to all the students, I don't know that all those were blank. And so those people just don't get anything. So
Right.
it's kind of funny, but you don't notice that. And I was like, oh no, this could be useful in that way. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It especially regional and states things. I have a lot of data on people taking online courses in different places. And so we have people that are in the United States, people that are in foreign countries, and then people with those APO addresses. So those are good different filters to quickly figure out how many people do I have that have an APO or AP, whatever, because they have a couple of variations of those military addresses. And it lets me count those very, very quickly. Lorraine,
Yes.
how do you think you could use these to
Well,
help you?
I'm not sure yet. I've seen some demos on pivot tables,
Mhm.
but I haven't really figured out how they will apply to the information that I collect.
What kind of information are you using?
I'm with the Energy Center at the University of Nebraska, so a lot of information I collect has to do with dollars that come in on various grants for people that have a project with us,
Mhm.
or the number of publications someone has. And I usually break that up according to the name of the project. So I might be able to do something there.
Yeah, I think you could use that option we were talking about earlier when you click on the pull down and use it to filter by like a certain number of publications, basically set some thresholds. But you also could use it for charts, and that's something we haven't talked about, but I want to kind of get some more questions before we get into charts. Does anybody have any other questions? Ms. Arnetta? Do you have any questions?
How would I use it if I wanted to sort students that are online, traditional, in our masters, in our PhD programs, who's online, who's traditional, who's a sophomore, freshman, and junior or senior?
Let me see if I can pull some of my data and then see if I can show you some of my data. Because basically all you're going to do is figure out,
Did I go home?
might not have enough memory left to do it. Online students, here we go. See if it, can y'all see, wait a minute, let's see if it shows up. Oh, it's mad. Didn't like it. Can you share your screen? Would it be okay to share your screen? Can I let her share her screen, Tammy? Or do I have to make her a co-presenter?
I don't have that information. It seems
I was
like
trying to find mine, but I don't know why it's
every
not
time
letting
I
me
try
open
to
it.
get the accurate information, NSU, there's different departments with different information, and I'm trying to be accurate for us, but I haven't been able to do that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I do. I go to the registrar's office, since they're the back end piece of all that. And I've got a person in the registrar's office who is basically the expert on campus on which tables and what fields belong to each table. And he gives me basically a way to build a query based on what he knows will give me that output. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes,
So I would reach out to the person in charge of data at the registrar's office,
okay,
because that's typically who you'd be looking for, because you're looking for registration data about different modalities of and academic classifications. And then
okay,
that person can pull you a big report, and then you can filter based on those fields. Because you have to know the name of the table and then the particular fields to write that query that's going to push out the data that you're going to use as your source data.
okay,
Yeah, once you have the source data, just call me and we'll go through it. It's nothing to do the source data part, but you have to actually figure out how to get that. And so like, I don't even know that because there's so many different tables, and we have, this is probably the case everywhere, but we have many tables that are very similarly named, and we have some things that belong to more than one table too.
okay.
So that gets confusing. So there's just no way you're going to be able to know that, because gosh knows you would never get anything done if you had to remember all that. But people at the registrar's office have to know all that all the time. Just like for your employee data, there's an HR analyst that could help you with that.
Okay,
So that's where I go to my analyst over at the registrar's office and my analyst over HR. And between those two guys, I'm able to pull all their data to have my source data and then be able to filter. But yeah, you could easily filter based on that. I have another one where I filter based on the CIP code, and then I pull it based on that. Then we have one where it's based on all the programs that are supervised field experience, and I filter out just based on those codes. So once you have your source data, really the hardest part, honestly, is getting your source data. So go to your data experts. There is a data analyst on every campus that knows exactly those table fields and table names, so that they can write those queries and get you your source data. But yeah, once you get that, let me know and we can just go over it real quick. It won't take a sec for me to show you how to do it. It's just a
Okay.
matter of getting that data to yourself, and then it'll be accurate because it'll be the best data based on what that person knows to be the most accurate table.
okay.
And that'll help you a lot. Is there anyone else that has any questions about filtering and formatting of the actual pivot tables and the slicers? Move this over here a little bit. I just want to show you that when you click on a slicer, there's also a slicer menu that comes up. And you could also put slicer styles into effect. Some of them you can hardly see, as you can see, but some of them are interesting. So that's something. And there's also slicer settings over here. So right now, this slicer is called business type, but if you wanted to call it, I don't know, business components or something, you could just type that in there. I always change both of them. And then you see it updated it, but then you'd have to, especially if you're doing a dashboard, you'd have to pull it out a little bit so you could see the entire name. So make sure you look at your slicer settings. It also changes the ascending to descending right there in the slicer settings as well. Right here, you see it's got checked visually indicate items with no data. So if you had some with no data, it would show something. Show items last deleted from data source. But we didn't do anything like that, so it doesn't really affect this particular piece. Now, if no one has any more questions, I want to dedicate the last couple minutes to going over how to create a pivot chart. This is pretty fancy. I'm going to go back to one of these pivots here with a little bit more data. I'm going to go to Insert, and right there you see Pivot Chart. So you see it's going to come up your chart menu just like you would have in any other situation, right? And let's say that I decide I'm going to do a chart. Maybe I'm really confused. I'm going to do a chart, a pie chart, which is not correct for this, because that doesn't really tell me anything, you know? So I want to change the chart type to a different type. So I want to right click it, and it says change series chart type. So you can kind of play with what you want. You might want a column. You might want a bar. But different options you can have, and there's sub options with it, stacked column, 3D cluster, but it's really easy to change it. So that's really good. And don't forget, just like all the times that you're doing this, you can add the data labels. So I clicked in the actual and then it starts adding labels. This doesn't help because it's such a big number, but you could definitely add data labels, and you have to do it on each pie piece though. And so that's what I would do, just go through these things. Now it might be, I don't know if it'll let me do this. Just let me do it. I don't think it's gonna let me do it. I could click them all. I don't think it's retaining it. Sometimes there's a key code you can use and then select them all, but it doesn't seem to want to work. But you'll see right there, you can do all that. And then there's also just the regular things you can do, format data labels. And when you see that, you've got your values, your percentage, your category name, your series name. So all those same things you do with charts, you can do with your pivot charts. Also, just like you usually do your charts, you also have design components to the pivot chart. So you see when I click on design right there to the right of pivot chart analyze, I can click on, I like to do that and pick different designs that are, no, that's too busy. That's too busy. See that black one that we had up there a second ago? That one was the nicest one. But it's, we got too much data in here. We need a lot more space if we're going to show all those things. But you see, it just seems to jump out at you better than the other ones. You can also change the colors to different color schemes. So basically, it's anything that you could have done in a regular chart, you can do with this. There's also pre-configured layouts that highlight different things. And you can preview them by just going over them and hovering over them. You can also add, see that? Wait, hold on, do you see that? Oops. See if they'll let me do it. That's not sticking. Legend, you can add a legend. So anything you could have done with a chart, you can do with a pivot chart. The only difference is that you can quickly make changes. So if you had a slicer in here based on insured values, let's hit an insert, slicer, slicer. Oops. Now remember, I always forget this. I have to be in the table to actually add the slicer. Insured value. Oops. Okay, let's find our slicer. I think it's behind. There it is. Okay, so if I had my slicer and I had my table, right? If I click a particular thing, only that particular thing will show up. So you see how quickly, and it adds the filter. And it filters just based on that particular category. So now we know the 105,000 insured value belongs to the other category. And the 140,000 insured value belongs to the retail category. So it kind of shows you how you can easily see information. And so the filter is allowing you to make this kind of interactive and lets you drill down pretty quickly with the information. So does anybody have any questions on how to use the pivot charts and the slicers together? Does anybody see any use for these in what you're doing? Miss Tammy? I don't know if she can hear me. I feel like for accreditation, you could probably use this to look at everything that you're doing holistically and then drill down to make reports and write the responses. Because we're working on our interim. And so one of the things we're doing is categorizing all our complaints. And is it a written complaint? Is it an online complaint? Is it just come to the office and fill out a form complaint? Can you mail it in? So all those different variables, you could easily put that information in here and then quickly find out what the answer is. In fact, that's a pretty good idea. So I may do that for our interim accreditation with SACS. So today we just kind of wanted to give you a holistic view of the different things that you could do with the pivot tables. Well, if when the next incarnation of our series goes next year, I'm sure they'll evaluate what else they would want to go review with you. So let us know. I'm sure they'll take a survey to let them know what exactly you would need. I would recommend looking into using a dashboard, which uses the charts, the slicers to build a big dashboard that automatically updates every time you make a change on the slicer. I know Corey's seen this. They automate this with SharePoint, and SharePoint does all the slicing basically on like a routine pattern of different things that you identify as your KPIs of important information that you want to see. Like call centers do things like that. But any business could use this data, and it does empower your data and quickly allows you to see what information you have at your fingertips, especially if you have a question about something. So just kind of be thinking about how you can use this. I will be sending out the recording as well as posting it to the website, sending out your certificates, and the other thing, one more thing, sending out the PDF of the PowerPoint with the specific instructions on how to do everything. I will OCR it. So if you type it in, different words that you're thinking of, like, and I'll have some information on how to do the dashboard in there as well. So once you get through and more comfortable with all this, you can definitely take the dashboard on. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'm glad to go over with you how to use the dashboard. And I'll try to add a couple extra tips, kind of like a little nugget of knowledge, 10 little nuggets of knowledge. So you'll have something to look forward to after you get handy with all this. So if there's no more questions, I think Miss Tammy had a couple of announcements she wanted to make, and I usually run to the very end. So I'm trying to give her a little bit of time to make those announcements. And I hope that we've been true to Rex's vision of challenging you all to look at how you can optimize your data in Excel using the pivot tables. Miss Tammy? I don't know if I can unmute her. Hold on.
Hey, thank you, Miss Jennifer. Let's give Jennifer a hand clap. I always say in church, hand clap of praise. We thank God for you, Miss Jennifer, with this pivot table. It's very interesting, and you can do so much with it. And of course, I'll be in contact with you because I'm looking to doing a project for the department. I want to thank all of you all for attending. Like I said, thank you for your patience with me. We're going through accreditation, so things are a lot going on, but the exit interviews today, and we're just praying for victory. Okay, a couple of announcements I want to run by you. Our last meeting for the Higher Education Council will be held Thursday, May the 20th. And so I would just give a little overview about what we have done and accomplished. And if you have any questions or suggestions about anything, please come prepared. And I'll try not to hold you too long. We'll have our meeting at the normal time we normally do. And I think this has been pretty good working out for everybody. 3 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. I don't know what 1 p.m. and 12 noon.
That's Pacific.
12 noon is Pacific.
One must be Mountain.
Mountain time, right? Mountain time. I'm sorry, Mountain time. Okay, so that's going to be held Thursday, May the 20th. And you could go to the website, our NAIOP website, and HE, Higher Education Council page, and just go over and view things, especially about our webinar sessions that we've been having. And Jennifer said she will send out send out along with the certificate, the link for you to go back and review. And our next and last first Friday session for this year 2021 term is going to be held June the 4th. Oh, that's great, Jennifer. Thank you. You're always on top. June the 4th. And we're going to have our session will be off of stress. And it will be provided information which will be beneficial to us as office professionals of coping with stress. And this will be presented by Norfolk State University professor, Dr. Ernestine Duncan. So please try to attend and get your friends and other office professionals to attend. Okay, our Higher Education Council newsletter, which we had developed, hands up, which we developed through our media and marketing committee, and Jennifer is core coordinator of that, along with Valerie. They helped and produced it, and Shelley as well. This will be sent out to you next week. So take a look at it. There's a lot of information, a lot of important information, and I'm sure you all would enjoy. So just read it at your leisure. And also just, again, encouraging you all to visit the website. I'd like to thank any of our new guests that are here. I thank all of you for attending. Happy Mother's Day on Sunday. If you're not a mother, auntie, or played or act like a mother, you're always mothering somebody, especially the students at the university. So Jennifer, I thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions, any announcements or anything? All right. Well, you all have a blessed day. Thank you, and look for the certificate and the link that Jennifer's going to send, and look for our newsletter after Mother's Day next week. All right. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you Thursday, May the 20th at the next Higher Education Council meeting.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.